Mooly felt weirdly proud. He opened the credit card app, tapped Pay Minimum, and thought, look at me being responsible. Then he looked at the balance. It moved so little that Mooly thought the app had frozen out of embarrassment. That is the sneaky part. The minimum payment feels like progress because it avoids trouble today while quietly renting tomorrow. The statement said minimum due, and Mooly's tired brain heard, good enough. But good enough is sometimes a tiny door into a very long hallway. Mooly was not buying a yacht. He was buying groceries, fuel, a birthday gift, and one takeaway after a terrible Tuesday. That made the debt feel normal. And normal is dangerous when interest is allowed to stay in the room. So today, Mooly is not learning a fancy finance hack. He is learning why the smallest allowed payment can become the most expensive habit. Same balance. Two different choices. One keeps the debt alive. The other starts starving it. And if you have ever paid the minimum and still felt stuck, this is the one Mooly wishes he understood earlier. This is Mooly. He is not a polished money expert. He is the everyday guy who made mistakes, regretted them, and now tries to learn in public. Mooly is useful because he is not perfect. He has bought things to feel better, avoided statements, and promised future Mooly he would fix it later. If that sounds familiar, subscribe now, because Mooly is building simple money objects for complicated mistakes. The principle today is minimum payment gravity. It is the force that makes debt feel manageable while pulling time, interest, and attention toward it. The way out is physical. Statement, balance, interest engine, extra payment ladder, and one clean rule before the card gets used again. This is not a shame video. Shame makes people hide. Mooly needs the opposite. He needs the numbers on the table where they can stop pretending. The proof is not just vibes. The Federal Reserve and the CFPB both show why credit card debt can feel small in the month and huge over time. Mooly's rule for this episode is simple. If the payment is small because the timeline is long, the real price is hiding in the timeline. Minimum payments feel safe because they wear a safety costume. They stop late fees. They protect the account. They keep the app from shouting. Those things matter. Mooly should pay at least the minimum. The problem starts when minimum becomes the plan. The phrase minimum due sounds official, final, and responsible. It is actually the smallest amount the lender will accept before calling it a problem. The CFPB says minimum formulas vary, but many use a floor or a percentage of the balance plus charges, fees, and past due amounts. In its latest market report, the CFPB found reviewed minimum payment floors ranging from $15 to $50, with $40 most common. A floor is helpful when the balance is small. But when the balance is large, a tiny floor can make the debt feel quieter than it really is. Mooly paid on time, so he felt like a good citizen of adulthood. But the balance was still sitting at the table, eating interest. This is why the minimum is emotionally powerful. It gives immediate relief without asking for the harder conversation. On a tired Tuesday, immediate relief can beat future math. Mooly is human, and human brains love the button that makes pressure stop. But pressure stopping is not the same as debt shrinking. That sentence annoyed Mooly because it was true. So Mooly names the first object. The minimum is a smoke alarm, not a staircase. A smoke alarm tells you there is danger. It is not the tool that repairs the kitchen. A staircase actually moves you somewhere. That is what extra principal payments do. They create steps. The minimum is not evil. It is just too small to be trusted with the whole escape plan. If this difference matters, comment alarm or stairs. Mooly wants to know which image made the debt clearer. Now comes the part Mooly used to ignore, the interest engine. The Federal Reserve's May 2026 release showed credit card plans around 21% and accounts assessed interest around 21.5%. 21% does not sound emotional. Until Mooly imagines a little worker adding cost while he sleeps. Many cards calculate interest using daily balance ideas. That means the balance is not just waiting. It is being measured again and again, even if Mooly adds no new charges. The old balance can still grow a little cost if it is not paid down fast enough. Mooly pictures the balance as a bucket. The minimum is a spoon. The interest is a slow tap above it. If the spoon removes less than the tap adds and the bucket already feels heavy, Mooly is not really escaping. He is maintaining the bucket. That line is uncomfortable because it explains the stuck feeling. Mooly was not lazy. He was using the wrong tool for the size of the leak. This is why credit card statements have to show a minimum payment warning and repayment estimates. The warning box is boring to look at, but it may be the most honest part of the statement. It can show how long payoff may take if only the minimum is paid and no more charges are added. Statements can also show an estimated payment to repay in 3 years and the savings compared with minimum-only repayment. Mooly's mistake was treating that box like fine print instead of a forecast. A forecast does not judge you. It tells you if the storm is moving closer. The surprising contrast is simple. The minimum makes today calmer. The warning box tells the truth about tomorrow. That creates the emotional consequence. Debt that looks polite can still make the future feel crowded. Nobody at the checkout can see that crowd. That is why credit card stress can feel private, quiet, and strangely lonely. Mooly stops asking, "Can I survive this month?" He starts asking, "What does this balance do if I leave it alone?" The second object is the interest engine. If it stays running, the minimum is just paying for noise control. The goal is not to feel brave around the engine. The goal is to turn it off faster. So Mooly builds the extra payment ladder. Not a giant heroic leap. A ladder. Rung 1 is paid a minimum on time. That protects the floor. Mooly does not skip the floor. Rung 2 is add something extra, even if it looks embarrassingly small. Small counts because it changes the direction. The debt is no longer just being maintained, it is being pushed. Rung 3 is stop using the card while the balance is being attacked. Otherwise, Mooly is filling the bucket while scooping it. No new swipes is boring advice, but it is powerful because it stops the target from moving. Rung 4 is pick one card to attack first. Mooly's brain needs a visible enemy, not a foggy pile. If the goal is math, he can attack the highest interest rate first. That is the avalanche. If the goal is motivation, he can attack the smallest balance first. That is the snowball. Mooly does not argue with the internet about which one is morally perfect. He picks the method he will actually follow. Rung 5 is automate the extra. If the extra payment waits for leftover money becomes a magician. The extra has to move before the month gets noisy. Not after every subscription, snack, and tiny comfort has made its case. Rung 6 is give the free payment a job when one card is paid off. Mooly can celebrate, but he cannot let the free payment become a lifestyle leak before the next card is handled. That is how the ladder gets easier. The same payment that felt heavy starts turning into momentum. The emotional win is not just a lower balance. It is the first time the statement feels less like a verdict. Mooly still does not enjoy opening the app. He is brave, not unrealistic, but now the app is not a mystery cave. It is a dashboard. He tracks 4 things: balance, interest rate, minimum, and extra payment. That is enough. Mooly does not need a financial command center with 20 tabs and a headache. Like the video, if this ladder makes credit cards feel less foggy. Mooly needs that signal for the next debt video. Now Mooly has to face the awkward reason balances return. The card was not only a debt tool, it was also a coping tool. He used it when the car needed fuel, when groceries jumped, and when he wanted one tiny piece of control after a hard week. If the habit underneath the balance does not change, the ladder becomes a treadmill. So Mooly builds a buying pause. Not a permanent ban, a pause. For non-essentials, he waits 24 hours. If the urge survives a day, it can meet the budget honestly. For essentials, he writes the reason down: food, fuel, medicine, urgent repair. The point is not guilt. The point is visibility. Visible spending can be managed. Invisible spending becomes fog, and fog is where credit cards become too easy. Then Mooly connects this video to the scary stats video. A $400 wall can stop the card from becoming the emergency plan. Using a card for a real emergency can happen. But if the card is the only emergency plan, the interest engine gets invited to every crisis. Mooly also checks subscriptions. They are tiny, polite, and very good at pretending not to matter. He does not need to fix his entire life today. He cancels or downgrades one leak and sends that money to the ladder. His rule becomes simple. If the card adds stress after the purchase was not as affordable as it looked. Before a swipe, Mooly asks, will this make next month's statement endure heavier? That question does not make him perfect. It gives him 1 second of steering wheel before the habit drives. A human plan needs friction at the exact moment humans get tired. Mooly stops pretending future Mooly will suddenly become a robot. Future Mooly needs guardrails, not speeches. So before the next card purchase, Mooly uses the credit card gravity test. Question 1. If this becomes a balance, what does it cost after interest? Question 2. If I only pay the minimum, how long might this follow me? Question 3. What could the extra payment do instead? Emergency wall, debt ladder, investing seed, or one calmer month? Question 4. Am I solving a problem or buying relief from a feeling? Question 5. Is there cash for this, or am I asking future Mooly to sponsor today? Sometimes the answer is still yes. Real life costs money. Mooly is not trying to become smug and joyless. But now, yes has to be honest. Honest yes includes the repayment plan before the card leaves the wallet. For some people, the best move is making the card sleep for a while. Not destroyed. Not dramatic. Just asleep. That might mean removing it from apps, wallets, and late night shopping paths. It might mean keeping the physical card somewhere boring and inconvenient. Boring works because impulse hates walking across the room. Mooly's one-sentence rule is this: if the card is easy to use, the payoff plan must be even easier to follow. That is the real lesson. Systems beat willpower because systems still exist when Mooly is tired. Mooly does not turn this into a scary math class. He turns the statement into 3 objects he can actually look at. Object 1 is the balance block. This is the amount still sitting there after the minimum payment has done its small job. Object 2 is the interest gear. This is the part that keeps charging rent for old decisions. Object 3 is the payoff road. This is how long the balance may follow him if the plan stays the same. The minimum road often looks calm at the entrance because the first step is small. The 3-year estimate can feel harder at the entrance, but it shows a shorter route through the fog. The difference between those roads is not imaginary. It is interest that does not have to be paid if the plan changes. Mooly underlines the boring condition. Those estimates usually assume no more charges are added. If he keeps adding new purchases, the payoff road moves while he is walking on it. That is when the statement stops being a guilt letter and becomes a tool. Mooly circles 2 lines every month: interest charged and estimated payoff path. Interest charged tells him what the engine cost this month. The payoff path tells him whether the ladder is actually shortening the road. If the road gets shorter, Mooly celebrates quietly, not with more spending. With one honest green check. If the road gets longer, Mooly does not panic. He looks for the leak that moved the target. His statement rule becomes simple. Every month, the engine should matter less and the ladder should matter more. If Mooly is already carrying a balance, the first step is not panic. It is inventory. He lists each card, balance, rate, minimum, due date, and the extra he can realistically send. Realistically is important. A fake heroic extra payment collapses the first time groceries fight back. Maybe the extra is $10, maybe $25, maybe one canceled leak. The number matters less than the direction becoming repeatable. He also sets autopay for at least the minimum if he can, because a missed payment can make the mess louder. If he cannot pay the minimum, he contacts the card company early and looks for reputable help before the problem hides longer. He avoids miracle promises. Debt problems are hard enough without paying someone to sell fog in a nicer font. If the situation is serious, nonprofit credit counseling can be worth researching carefully. Before attacking debt, Mooly protects basics: food, housing, transport, medicine, and the starter emergency wall. This matters because debt payoff that breaks the household just pushes the balance somewhere else. Then he built a debt calendar. Not every day. Just one weekly check where the numbers cannot disappear. Each week he asks 3 questions. Did the balance move? Did the card sleep? Did the extra payment happen? If the answer is no, he restarts small. Shame wants a courtroom. Mooly needs a workshop. A workshop fixes one part at a time. One leak. One due date. One card. One payment. Nobody may clap for a lower credit card balance. That is fine. Private wins are still real wins. The payoff is not just debt gone. The payoff is opening a statement without feeling your stomach leave the room. It is 1 month where the paycheck arrives and fewer people are already waiting for it. Mooly becomes the person who sees the minimum, respects it, and then refuses to let it lead the whole plan. Share this with someone who thinks paying the minimum means the debt is handled. They may need the latter too. Now Mooly puts the whole lesson on the table: smoke alarm, interest engine, payment ladder, buying pause, weekly check. The minimum is the smoke alarm. It matters, but it is not the repair. Interest is the engine. If it keeps running, time works against Mooly. Extra payments are the ladder. Even small rungs change direction. The buying pause stops the target from moving while Mooly is trying to hit it. The weekly check keeps the story visible before it turns into another month of fog. The reversal is that the minimum payment is not the villain. Letting the minimum become the strategy is the villain. Mooly can teach this because he knows the feeling, the little relief, the ignored box, the balance that keeps coming back. So if this is you, you're not stupid. You are dealing with a product designed to feel manageable 1 month at a time, but feeling understood cannot be the finish line. The next move has to be physical. One extra payment, one card asleep, one subscription leak patched, one weekly check on the calendar. One is small enough to start and visible enough to trust. That also sets up the next Mooly lesson. Because credit cards are only one version of future money being spent too early. So tomorrow, Mooly may still open the app and see minimum due. But now he does not hear, good enough. He hears, warning received. Then he asks the better question. What extra step turns this from maintenance into escape? That is the real change. Not pretending the minimum is bad, but refusing to let the smallest allowed payment decide the length of his life. Comment ladder if this helped. Or comment engine if the interest part was the wake-up call. Subscribe for the next Mooly money lesson, where he keeps turning regret into rules ordinary people can actually use. Remember, Mooly is not perfect. But today, he is one rung higher, one statement clearer, and one small step closer to freedom.